It will come alive.
It already has, right? If you look at the virtual stuff that you do,
Okay,
mind blowing.
who's going to read the 7 realities?
Today it's
What?
Mama,
Mama,
Okay.
Doc.
Doc Mama.
You know, Doc reminds me of Back to the Future.
Oh, why?
Yeah,
No, there's a
the
character.
character,
Ah,
Michael. he always say like Doc.
Like that, I know. I've noticed.
He'll become Doc Baba, like Doc Mama to Doc Baba.
Doc Mama. What happened? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Paginated.
So you got to do the 7 realities. Of
Yeah,
course,
yeah. Yes.
you have to give some nicknames for everybody, man.
Sure.
Baba
That's
had,
mine.
like
He
all
loved
kinds
it.
of, right?
He loved it. Yeah. So,
So
Mama, you can see the screen?
Aha.
Yes. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. 7 realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following 7 realities. The only real existence is that of one and only God, who is the big self in every infinite small self. The only real love is the love for this infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, God. The only, take it up. Okay. The only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuit of this love, all things, body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. The only real renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. The only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and the so called bad, in saints and in this so called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand without expectation of reward. When compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those to whom you just scroll it up.
Not even those who harm you.
Not even those who harm you. Okay. The only real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. The only surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with perfect calm to the will of God.
Jai Baba.
Yes.
Jai
Right.
Meher
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Karthik, Namita is
Jai
waiting
Baba.
at the door.
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear that, I think.
Yeah.
Just attended Namita's lovely aarti in the morning today. It was so nice.
Nice. Sorry for the long wait, Namita.
It's okay. Good morning.
Good
Jai
morning. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
So we are on the physical page 266. You're joining twice?
Yeah, when
Yeah. Okay. So we finished the first paragraph. If you want, I will read it again.
it's okay.
Yeah. No. I mean,
I think
I'm
you should
saying
read
we're
it
just
again.
starting. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Avatar, Avatar Meher Baba ki jai, the Avatar, consciously or unconsciously, every living creature seeks one thing in the lower forms of life and in less advanced human beings. One second.
Karthik,
I'm
font
doing that.
size next
I'm
step.
doing that. I'm doing that. Consciously or unconsciously, every living creature seeks one thing. In the lower forms of life and in less advanced human beings, the quest is unconscious. In advanced human beings, it is conscious. The object of the quest is called by many names: happiness, peace, freedom, truth, love, perfection, self realization, God realization, union with God. Essentially, it is the search for all of these, but in a special way. Everyone has moments of happiness, glimpses of truth, fleeting experiences of union with God. What they want is to make them permanent. They want to establish an abiding reality in the midst of constant change. This is a natural desire based fundamentally on a memory dim or clear as the evolution of the individual soul may be low or high of its essential unity with God. Am I missing something here? This is a natural desire based fundamentally on a memory dim or clear as the evolution of the individual soul may be low or high of its essential unity with God. I'm not sure I understand that line. If anybody suggests, we can revisit that. Otherwise, I'll keep going. For
Basically,
every-
it says it depending on the progress that you have made, your the impressions that you carry with you. So I think
Okay.
that's what is indirectly being said. Yeah.
Okay.
It also means that in the stone state and all that, it's a natural thing to move to the other state. So whether and otherwise it depends upon the karmic burden basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The sentence can be read as, because there is a hyphen. This
Mhm.
is a natural desire
Natural desire.
based
Yeah.
fundamentally on a memory of its essential unity with God. So whether
Yeah.
it
Okay.
is a stone or a plant, it is an Atma.
Okay.
Then it
Got it.
becomes human, it becomes Jivatma, but unity with God is already latent, it's dormant in it.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
It's a
Yes.
natural
yes.
desire. Got it.
Natural.
It's
Thank
a
you.
natural desire. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
For every living thing is a partial manifestation of God, conditioned only by its lack of knowledge of its own true nature. The whole of evolution, in fact, is an evolution from unconscious divinity to conscious divinity, in which God Himself, essentially eternal and unchangeable, assumes an infinite variety of forms, enjoys an infinite variety of experiences, and transcends an infinite variety of self imposed limitations. Evolution from the standpoint of the creator is a divine sport in which the unconditioned tests the infinitude of his absolute knowledge, power, and bliss in the midst of all conditions. But evolution from the standpoint of the creature, with its limited knowledge, limited power, limited capacity for enjoying bliss, is an epic of alternating rest and struggle, joy and sorrow. Love and hate until in the perfected person, God balances the pairs of opposites and duality is transcended. Then creature and
I have
creator.
a comment here.
Sure.
This paragraph is very important. One is duality is transcended. So if you look at the word God as an acronym, I've said earlier, get over duality or the game of duality, Krishna Leela. And the second line is in that paragraph, the whole of evolution, in fact, is an evolution from unconscious divinity to conscious divinity. This is the real purpose because unconscious divinity is the beyond God state, state 1. And the conscious divinity is state 10, which we read in God Speaks, the final stage. So unconscious divinity is the original state of God, and the conscious divinity is the final state of God. So everything that is happening in between is just a process. Yeah, ma'am.
Thank you. That's a good clarity. You mentioned Krishna Leela, and I remembered. I'm sorry I didn't start with that. So, any reflections and observations on Maya? Anybody went back and read? Did you reflect? Because obviously it was one of the complicated, complex conceptual learnings that we are going through. So, if anybody who has questions or comments, this is a good time before we continue with Avatar.
Regarding those four chapters on Maya, as I read each chapter, I understand something, but at the end, everything becomes a jumble. So I need to revisit maybe once or twice, once again, and then crystallize things. And I was unable to write down something. Some ideas came, but I couldn't write down. Maybe next time I will do something like that.
Yeah. So I did not read, but I am still struggling with the whole sequence. But my only aha is I'm convinced of the shadow part, right, which I've heard all along. But I've bought into that. I'm still figuring the rest out. And honestly, I have not reread the chapter, but I've been thinking all day about it. So, so
See,
anybody else? Yeah.
in my understanding, first of all, we have heard the Maya from childhood.
Yes.
And the way we have been conditioned to interpret Maya is illusion,
Illusion.
which is not.
Yes.
The real definition is Maya is the creator of illusion, the principle of ignorance. This is the only place that I have read the correct definition of Maya. Because Baba clearly defines that Maya is the shadow of reality. Where you are, your shadow is. You know, when we walk out in the morning outside, you see your shadow. So it's a great analogy, you know. And I think, and second thing I can tell you based on my reading, these 4 chapters on Maya is almost about the psychological challenges that a human being faces in his day-to-day life, the way we perceive things. So it's a very, you know, it's something that you need to read couple of times and slowly the insight comes, you know. Jai Baba.
Thank you. So I think that's a reminder. I request all of you who are.
Yeah, actually, when we were kids, we were all, the word Brahma also was used, you know. ये तुम्हारा ब्रह्म है मतलब ये, this is a part of your imagination.
Brahme.
So
Brahme.
basically Brahma, yeah.
Brahm.
So yeah, Brahm hai, you know, and I mean so many times your mother would say कि ये तुम्हारा ब्रह्म है, you know, it's just part of your imagination.
Correct.
And yesterday I read a lot, and you know, I read a part in which the 5 perfect masters, in fact, all the thoughts which come to us are also part of their doing, and it's part of their game, which was so interesting. I had never thought of it like that, you know. Um, I think I can send you that. It was a talk by Erich in which he explains so many things, and this is the first time I'd ever kind of read and heard him. It was really very simple to understand and really, really profound. So maybe I can share that bit with you later.
Please. Great. Any other comments before we can continue with the avatar?
So my only question is that we know that there is Maya, there is illusion. Now the only thing is that the tools or the path for overcoming Maya. So that I think we'll take in the future conversations. But would meditation be one of the tools or techniques to sort of on the path to overcoming Maya?
It's not about overcoming. It's more about recognition.
Yeah, you have to lose yourself in Maya. Basically,
yes.
in Maya, you have to lose yourself. It is that chicken game when she, you know, the chicken eats up herself. So same way in Maya, you lose yourself, and it's only because of Maya that you lose Maya. In
And
Maya,
you
that
need
you lose
Maya. And like
yes.
Baba says, you need Maya in the last chapter. You need it, right? So you need it till the end. And it's a necessary condition for the process of the path.
Yeah,
and
necessary
seeking.
evil.
Necessary evil, yes. So it is something that is a conceptual building block that we will have to struggle and master on the path. So keep reading, keep thinking, and keep bringing these things up to us, to all of us, so that all of us learn in the process.
No, but
So,
a very interesting thing was that every thought which comes to us is also planted in us, right? So basically, whatever happens, it's a Brahma that we are, our ego or the I thing is just an illusion. So everything is planted in us, and we, as a natural process, move into, the other realms after. I don't know, after experiencing whatever thing, but it's nothing is in our hands. Even a thought is not in our hands. Is there, which was very interesting to read.
sure.
You know,
Please
one
share
more
that.
interpretation. One more interpretation is that when you read other Vedanta Advaita thing, like Nisargadatta Maharaj or Ramana Maharshi, Maya happens when you identify with the body. See, one of the things I suggest to the forum is that this word identification is very important. You will come across it many times here in discourses, that the false identification with the body, gross body, subtle body, and mental body, and getting caught up in objective creation. So technically, I should say false identification with the subjective body and getting caught up in objective creation. That is Maya. As long as you don't identify with it, this world is real. See, it's a very paradoxical statement because there is a phrase which says God itself is a paradox, this whole thing. Now that itself will take, lot of hours of discussion.
Say that again, say that again. So the world is real. When you say that again, that was a very profound statement.
Okay. See, the world is real because it is coming out of the infinite. Okay.
Okay.
This world that we have, what you see, because if I pinch you, you're going to feel the pain. That is real. Okay. I think the beauty about this whole discourse in God Speaks, what it tells us that, the false identification with the body and the getting caught up in creation is Maya. Okay. Because, for example, I'll tell you, suppose I'm an athlete. Okay. Gross body is an example of I am Tendulkar, I'm Gavaskar. So I'm a great athlete. Suppose you're a subtle body, energy, emotions, feelings. I am a great musician, A.R. Rahman. And if you take the mental body, I'm a great intellect, like, I am Dr. Abdul Kalam. So what we do is in it, and it's only in the waking state. Maya exists only during the waking state because we kind of exclude the sleep state because we take it for granted. So if we start using our sleep state as a reference point and then relate the waking state to it, you'll realize that we go through this dichotomy. So duality, see, when we were talking about evil, there's nothing like evil. It's a different degrees. Like good and bad, bad is a lesser degree of goodness. So as such, there is no duality. Duality is Maya, actually.
Got it. But you didn't repeat that line. You didn't repeat that line. It's at point 30 minutes. I'll go back to the video and put it to the group. That was a very powerful line.
Yes.
You said
both. You use subjective and objective.
Objective.
It
so
was very.
It was perfect.
Okay.
So it's at point 30 minutes today.
Anyway, it is recorded with Z.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else before we continue?
So, sort of, Maya is a precondition, you can say, sort of. It's already given. So it's a precondition on the path.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so we continue. Then creature and creator recognize themselves as one. Changelessness is established in the midst of change. Eternity is experienced in the midst of time. God knows himself as God, unchangeable in essence, infinite in manifestation, ever experiencing the supreme bliss of self-realization in continually fresh awareness of himself by himself. This realization must and does take place only in the midst of life, for it is only in the midst of life that limitation can be experienced and transcended. and that subsequent freedom from limitation can be enjoyed. This freedom from limitation assumes three forms. Most God-realized souls leave the body at once and forever and remain eternally merged in the unmanifest aspect of God. They are conscious only of the bliss of union. Creation no longer exists for them. Their constant round of births and deaths is ended. This is known as moksha, ordinary mukti or liberation. So this is something the Kama has been telling us, right? So most God-realized souls don't come back, and they're just, creation no longer exists for them. Some God-realized souls retain the body for a time, but their consciousness is merged completely in the unmanifest aspect of God, and they are therefore not conscious either of their bodies or of creation. They experience constantly the infinite bliss, power, and knowledge of God, but they cannot consciously use them in creation or help others to attain liberation. Nevertheless, their presence on earth is like a focal point for the concentration and radiation of the infinite power, knowledge, and bliss of God. And those who approach them, serve them, and worship them are spiritually benefited by contact with them. These souls are called Majubs-e-Kamil, and this particular type of liberation is called Videha Mukti, or liberation with the body. A few God-realized souls keep the body, yet are conscious of themselves as God in both his unmanifest and his manifest aspects. They know themselves both as the unchangeable divine essence and as its infinitely varied manifestation. They experience themselves as God, apart from creation, as God, the creator, preserver, and destroyer of the whole of creation, and as God who has accepted and transcended the limitations of creation. These souls experience constantly the absolute peace, the infinite knowledge, power, and bliss of God. They enjoy to the full the divine sport of creation. They know themselves as God in everything. Therefore, they are able to help everything spiritually and thus help other souls realize God, either as Majubs-e-Kamil, Paramahamsas, Jivan Muktas, or even Sadgurus, as they themselves are called. Okay. There are 56 God-realized souls. Yeah.
I wanted to make a comment here. Sorry, because when you were reading about the the first paragraph where he talks about this is known as moksha, ordinary mukti or liberation. Okay, there is an error out here because mukti, ordinary moksha, according to the gods.
Your audio cut off, Kama.
Oh, sorry.
Repeat.
Sorry. When we were reading God Speaks, because God Speaks came after discourses. So God Speaks is the final authority in any terminologies and definitions. Okay. So in that, in the supplement, page number 243, there is I think I had put it on the post, the 4 types of mukti or liberation. Ordinary mukti or ordinary moksha is achieved only after death by some exceptionally God-fearing, truth-loving good souls. So that is the real definition, And here it says that, it just gives a general statement. But Nirvikalpa Samadhi, so Nirvana, Nirvikalpa Samadhi and Sahaja Samadhi happens before death. And most God-realized souls leave the body at once and forever, which can apply to a person who has attained nirvana and probably keeps the body for some time. And it also happens for people who attain Nirvikalpa Samadhi, because you know the difference between Nirvana and Nirvikalpa Samadhi is Nirvana is the only state where God consciousness is not. It is only, it's the divine absolute vacuum, the state one. So this is Nirvana is different from Nirvikalpa Samadhi and Sahaja Samadhi, So this is an important. So this paragraph should be they should rewrite this based on God speaks actually.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
the page that you are referring to. This is note
Correct,
24. And here again, he refers to all the 4 types of liberation: ordinary mukti, videha mukti, jivan mukti, and parama mukti. And
This is better
obviously,
explained.
this replaces our understanding here. Very good point. Yeah, the second one is videha mukti. Okay. Yeah. So we were past this. Yeah. There are 56. So, but then here he says there are 3, right? There are 3 types.
Yes. There are only 3 steps here.
Yes.
There
Whereas
are 4
here,
steps there. Yes.
here he clearly says there are 4.
Yes.
Ordinary mukti, videha mukti. So, and he's differentiating the last phase into jivan mukti and param mukti. Azade mutlak in turiya avastha, all knowledge. That's the junction. Jivan mukta.
See, Jivan Mukti happens to something like what happened to Ramana Maharishi. Parama Mukta is basically for the 5 Sadgurus of the time, the 5
Correct.
perfect masters after out of the 56 God realized souls.
Okay. So this is better distilled. The supplement in God Speaks is better distilled, and you have a point. They should consider revisiting this part so that
Yes.
there's no confusion. Okay, with that we continue. There are 56 God realized souls in the world at all times. They are always one in consciousness. They are always different in function. For the most part, they live and work apart from and unknown to the general public. But 5 who act in a sense as a directing body always work in public and attain public prominence and importance. These are known as Sadgurus or perfect masters. In avataric periods, the avatar as the supreme Sadguru takes his place as the head of this body and of the spiritual hierarchy as a whole. Let's see what is spirit. Okay. Every advent of the avatar, I'm reading the footnote. Every advent of the avatar, the God-man, the Messiah, the Buddha, the Christ, the Rasul, is the direct descent of God on earth in human form as the eternal living perfect master. The 5 Sadgurus of the age precipitate this advent once in a cyclic period of 700 to 1400 years. For detail, see God Speaks.
There's another thing which is very nice, which I read, was that at every point of time, the avatar comes down. Even now, he is there in human form somewhere. He may come down for a special person. He may come down for a special family. He may come down if there is some war or something. But nobody knows. He's still in disguise. But the avatar is there all the time, even in human form.
Okay.
Which was, I thought, very beautiful. This is according to, again, Erich. And he says that 700, there are a lot of dictations which Baba did, which were not written down. And he told the Mandali a lot of things which still, which they told verbally, or, they've spoken about it, but it's not really written in any book or in these books, So he says after 700 years, there'll be a God Speak Part 2. Because this God Speak Part 1 is supposed to be very difficult to comprehend. So that'll complete the picture, but that'll be only after 700 years.
Okay, I hope some of us stick around.
No, we will all be in moksha, so we won't get to read it.
That's Nomita, the eternal optimist,
Yes,
and the
yes.
one on the higher plane already.
So you can read it, I will be completely in
Yes.
moksha.
No, you may be a perfect master, so help us.
Help us.
Okay, you keep
Don't
on doing
assume.
what you're doing. I may consider.
Okay. Thanks for your magnanimity. Okay, so I continue.
This para where you read in avataric periods the avatar as the supreme Sadguru.
Yeah.
This is the only place I have read this terminology, supreme Sadguru.
No,
And
it's the second
also
time
in the
it's appearing.
introduction, you would have read Remember, if when you read the introduction, I pointed out where it says that the eternal living perfect master. So this is another terminology.
No, I think Supreme Sadguru also is the second time we are coming across. I think either in Beams or in the chapters we did in.
That's right.
Yeah,
Probably in that speech, something
in
like
Beams it did come as Supreme Sadguru, also eternal living perfect master. Yes.
We
Yeah,
say
I
it
think
in our prayers also, no, every day.
Yes. No, but Avatar being referred as that, I think this is the second time I am coming across in our readings. Okay. So I like this line very much, so I'll continue from that.
I think you can read the footnote. That will
I did.
explain.
I did.
Okay. Yeah,
I did.
okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I'll just continue. Avataric periods are like the spring tide of creation. They bring a new release of power, a new awakening of consciousness, a new experience of life, not merely for a few, but for all. Qualities of energy and awareness, which had been used and enjoyed by only a few advanced souls, are made available for all humanity. Life as a whole is stepped up to a higher level of consciousness, is geared to a new rate of energy. The transition from sensation to reason was one such step. The transition from reason to intuition will be another. This new influx of the creative impulse manifests through the medium of a divine personality, an incarnation of God in a special sense, the avatar. The avatar was the first individual soul to emerge from the evolutionary and involutionary process as a Sadguru, and he is the only avatar who has ever manifested or will ever manifest. Through him, God first completed the journey from unconscious divinity to conscious divinity, first unconsciously became man in order to consciously become God. Through him, periodically, God consciously becomes man for the liberation of mankind. I think this is a good explanation, but I still think the best is Beams. Beams for definition of avatar, right? So if you want, I'll read this again. This new influx of the creative impulse manifests through the medium of a divine personality, an incarnation of God in a special sense, the avatar. The avatar was the first individual soul to emerge from the evolutionary and involutionary process as a Sadguru, and he is the only avatar who has ever manifested or will ever manifest. Through him, God first completed the journey from unconscious divinity to conscious divinity. First, unconsciously became man in order consciously to become God. Through him, periodically, God consciously becomes man for the liberation of mankind. So, the avatar.
Yeah. See, it is said that the God, Baba is present for 100 years. So his avataric period, is from 100 years from the point he dropped his body. So, and to just to connect with Samiraji's point that the avatar is amidst us and his is present. So who knows this present time when we are going through a lot of change, his presence is always there, and but the only thing we don't know or we can't recognize it in a human form.
True. Well said.
See, one more point is that line, the last line which you read, through him, the avatar, periodically, God consciously becomes man for the liberation of mankind. So I've read in another messages of Baba where basically he says that all jivatmas, people like us, if we attain nirvana, nirvikalpa samadhi or so on, if we become, manonash or God realized, the soul never comes back to earth. Only the avatar reincarnates again and again through that first individual soul who became the first master. So I think when Tushar was there, he used to talk about people who are avatars of God people who are God realized, who go through the evolution, involution process, they reincarnate. None of the
But you
Sadgurus.
can't use use the word reincarnation for an advent. You can't use it for the avatar
Yeah,
because
it's Advent.
so the reincarnation is an absolutely a no word to use for the avatar.
No, no.
Sorry.
My point is that I was saying that Sadhguru's, any self-realized soul, anybody who gets moksha or liberation, never comes back. But there is a controversy that people always relate to certain Sadgurus. Oh, he's the incarnation of this or that. Yes, he might have the attributes, but he will be a different soul, actually. You know, just like Baba says, you will come across in the reading of the Avatar and Perfect Masters that every time when the Avatar comes, he has this. The Sadgurus and the Avatars, when they come with the circle of 12 plus 2, inner circle, those souls are different each time, but their functions
Yes.
always
So there's
remain
no
the same in every.
reincarnation. Yeah.
Yes.
So, but then that doesn't bode well with what he has said, where he has said it is me that comes back again and again, right? So that's I'm struggling with
So
that. So it's that more a
when he
general
comes
statement.
back in you, so when the five masters, when the five perfect masters who are there at any point of time, when there's too much of whatever is happening these days,
The
the
wick of
five
righteousness.
perfect masters ask them to come down, and he comes down as an advent. He doesn't reincarnate. He is the perfect one in any case, you see. And his the sanskars which he gets are given to him by the five masters, and slowly his veil is removed over time in the five turning of the keys, like the five perfect masters. So but they also so it's basically not a reincarnation in any way. I mean, that's a term which you can use for human
Other
beings
souls.
and Sadhguru. Yes, other souls, but not for the avatar.
Okay, I think
Yeah, the right is incarnation of God. Yes, an incarnation of God in a special sense, the avatar.
Advent.
Yes.
Yeah, Advent.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think I just found that paragraph I was thinking about. This is again a very good distinction. I relate to this very highly. So if you don't mind, I'll read that. This is from Beams. Okay. The avatar is the first master of the first God realized soul. But in God realization, the full consciousness of the first master became fused with the eternally infinite consciousness of the avatar. Therefore, with the coming down of the first God realized man, the avatar himself descended and took an incarnation in his body. So, from the point of view of incarnation, the avatar is the same as the first master. This master had no master in human form, but all subsequent masters had masters in the human form to help them in truth realization. Again, this is something that was clearly written by Baba long after Discourses and God Speaks, and this is, I think, I relate to this very, very well. So I just wanted to bring that out.
See,
The other point here, very important, I thought was, it is the primary soul which has gone through the creation and attained the ultimate realization. First soul to do that, which is repeatedly coming as avatar.
correct.
Correct. Perfect. Yeah. The avatar appears in different forms, under different names, at different times, in different parts of the world. As his appearance always coincides with the spiritual regeneration of man, the period immediately preceding his manifestation is always one in which humanity suffers from the pangs of the approaching rebirth. Man seems more than ever enslaved by desire, more than ever driven by greed, held by fear, swept by anger. The strong dominate the weak, the rich oppress the poor, large masses of people are exploited for the benefit of the few who are in power. The individual who finds no peace or rest seeks to forget himself in excitement. Immorality increases, crime flourishes, religion is ridiculed, corruption spreads throughout the social order, class and national hatreds are aroused and fostered, wars break out, humanity grows desperate. There seems to be no possibility of stemming the tide of destruction. At this time, the avatar at this time the avatar appears. being the total manifestation of God in human form. He is like a gauge against which man can measure what he is and what he may become. He trues the standard of human values by interpreting them in terms of divinely human life. He is interested in everything but not concerned about anything. The slightest mishap may command his sympathy. The greatest tragedy will not upset him. He is beyond the alternations of pain and pleasure, desire and satisfaction, rest and struggle, life and death. To him, they are equally illusions that he has transcended, but by which others are bound, and from which he has come to free them. He uses every circumstance as a means to lead others toward realization. He knows that individuals do not cease to exist when they die and therefore is not concerned over death. He knows that destruction must precede construction, that out of suffering is born peace and bliss, that out of struggle comes liberation from the bonds of action. He is only concerned about concern. In those who contact him, he awakens a love that consumes all selfish desires in the flame of the one desire to serve him. Those who consecrate their lives to him gradually become identified with him in consciousness. Little by little, their humanity is absorbed into his divinity and they become free. Those who are close to him are known as his circle. Every Sadguru has an intimate circle of 12 disciples who, at the point of realization, are made equal to the Sadguru himself, though they may differ from him in function and authority. In avataric periods, the avatar has a circle of 10 concentric circles with a total of 122 disciples, all of whom experience realization and work for the liberation of others. For details, see the circles of the avatar. I think it's coming up below. The work of the avatar and his disciples is not only for contemporary humanity, but for posterity as well. The unfoldment of life and consciousness for the whole avataric cycle, which had been mapped out in the creative world before the avatar took form, is endorsed and fixed in the formative and material worlds during the avatar's life on earth. The avatar awakens contemporary humanity to a realization of its true spiritual nature, gives liberation to those who are ready, and quickens the life of the spirit in his time. For posterity is left the stimulating power. For posterity is left the stimulating power of his divinely human example, of the nobility of a life supremely lived, of a love unmixed with desire, of a power unused except for others, of a peace untroubled by ambition, of a knowledge undimmed by illusion. He has demonstrated the possibility of a divine life for all humanity, of a heavenly life on earth. Those who have the necessary courage and integrity can follow when they will. Those who are spiritually awake have been aware for some time that the world is at present in the midst of a period such as always precedes avataric manifestations. Even unawakened men and women are becoming aware of it now. From their darkness, they are reaching out for light. In their sorrow, they are longing for comfort. From the midst of the strife into which they have found themselves plunged, they are praying for peace and deliverance. For the moment, they must be patient. The wave of destruction must rise still higher, must spread still further. But when, from the depths of his heart, man desires something more lasting than wealth and something more real than material power, the wave will recede. Then peace will come, joy will come, light will come. The breaking of my silence, the signal for my public manifestation, is not far off. I bring the greatest treasure it is possible for man to receive, a treasure that includes all other treasures that will endure forever, that increases when shared with others. Be ready to receive it. Share Baba.
Yeah, Baba.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's
You'll go to a different chapter now,
sure.
but I want to point out something here, that in the reading that you did, there is one line that I want to repeat here. On page
Sure.
number 269, it says the unfoldment of life and consciousness.
Yeah, here.
Yeah, which had been mapped out in the creative world before the avatar took form, is endorsed and fixed
In the formative and material
That
worlds.
is exactly the five perfect masters fine tuning each one of us, you know, with our thoughts, basically, before he comes down, also.
The unfoldment of life and consciousness for the whole avataric cycle, which had been mapped out in the creative world before the avatar took form, is endorsed and fixed in the formative and material worlds during the avatar's life on earth. Kama, we lost you. Are you back?
Yeah, sorry. My question to the forum is that one is the avatar comes every 700 to 1400 years. So there is a design out here, in modern information, if you use technology, there is a term called IT, information theory. All of us are like unique information theory, which like a unique DNA number. The second thing I want to ask the forum is that, when you look at all the different avatars that Baba described, like now if you look at Muhammad was 600 AD, so it's approximately 1400 years, which makes sense. Then if you look at Jesus, about 500, then Buddha was 500 BC. So there's a plus or minus situation. And then before that, we are talking about Krishna, Rama, and Zoroaster. So now, is time based on human time that we know, or is it something else that we are not aware of? Because there is still controversy when the Ramakrishna, like Satya Yuga state or Dwapara Yuga state, that is something that has been bothering me. And second thing, when we read God Speaks, he talks about, there are 7,000 people who are basically between the first plane to the seventh plane, and then he talks about the 56 God realized souls at a time on planet Earth. And out of that, 5 are perfect masters. So it almost seems like the big picture is very much designed, just like in classical mechanics in our material world, the laws of nature or laws of material science, like all the physical constants, pi is equal to 3.1415, and Planck's constant, gravitational constant, these are all fixed. So I see a kind of an interesting, parallel here, which I have not been able to figure out. Like even in the spiritual world that Baba talks about, he talks about all these numbers. So this is something, I just wanted to, put a kind of a thought in your mind, and I would love to see what your views are on this. Jai Baba.
So there's quite a bit of controversy even in the mythological / Vedic yugas, right? So there's quite a bit of reading and YouTube that's available on how those calculations need to be done, right down to the panchangams that we use, the Hindu calendars. That's on one side. I've also heard, I don't know who it was, but one of the speakers in the Baba world talking about. Um, um, he also went into the Vedic time and the Vedic yugas, and also tried to contrast Baba's calculation of time with that. So that was pretty interesting, but I don't remember much of it. But yes, I am intrigued about that as well. So any other insights from the forum will be good.
Go ahead.
There are 2 points which I would like to bring out here. One is in the Vedic literature, 12 rishis are referred to. Are they the inner circle 12 people? I don't
Yes.
know. That comes to my mind
Yes.
here. The other one is the time span given in yugas is very large to understand for us to think of that time span. And this time span, which is very algebraic or say arithmetic, which is given here, 700 to 1400 years, is understandable for us, and it becomes almost historic. Nothing in the sort of realm of say a storyline or anything.
Mythology.
So I don't know how to relate these things together.
But you also have the time of Pralay and Mahapralay, where the time stands still. So that is not counted at all. You know, when he decides
Ah,
for some time. So
To extrapolate what Samira was talking about, the avatar appearing in, I think one line that came out of this particular chapter reading was the avatar appears in different forms under different names at different times in different parts of the world. So probably we might not be aware, where he manifests, sometimes he, so I probably think that is why we have this dichotomy about Rama was supposed to be in Satya Yuga, right? If I'm not mistaken, and
yes,
Krishna was in Dwapara Yuga.
yes,
And if you read, I will try to attach this book called The Holy Science, written by Mukteshwar, Sri Yukteswar, who was the disciple of Lahari Mahasaya of Kriya Yoga.
yes, yes, yes,
He
yes.
was asked by Babaji to write this book to show the relationship between Christianity and, probably Hinduism or whatever. And there he mentions, so there is a number out here which I talked about. I kind of believe in that there is the 12,000 years of descent and 12,000 years of ascent, which is divided into 4 parts. So, which is the Satya Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Kali Yuga. So Kali Yuga is 1200, then next comes 2400, 3600, and 4800. If
Yes.
you add that up, it comes to 12,000 years. That is why one of the, interpretation is that because Kali Yuga is only 1200 years, you actually face more suffering. There is another 80-20 rule. Uh, in Satya Yuga, 80% people are moving towards, spirituality and finding the truth. 20% are the odd people.
Yes.
And then next comes the 60-40. 60 people are into spirituality, 40 non-spirituality, and so on. So if you come to Kali Yuga, probably 20% are interested in spirituality and 80% are caught up in Maya.
Yes.
So the advantage you have in Kali Yuga in 1200 years is somebody said that more the obstacles, quicker the path.
Quicker.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So that is the summary.
Suffering. That's the suffering part. Yes.
Suffering, yeah.
This is in the Vedic, in the say Puranic literature, this is represented as a cow with 4 legs in Satya. One leg is not functioning, sort of. That is 80-20.
Oh,
The next yuga, it is 2 legs. It stands on 2 legs. In the Dwapara Yuga, it stands on 2 legs. In the earlier one, it stands on 3 legs. And in Kali Yuga, it is standing on 1 leg. Anytime to collapse.
it's a good one.
And
Good
then
one.
there are three there are a lot of minor avatars also who come, like Shivaji. Then the second one was supposed to be somewhere in Burma. And the third one was supposed to be someone who was a sweet seller. So there are minor avatars also who come down, it seems.
Yes.
Yes, I've heard that as well. Even in the Baba literature, very clearly he's mentioned.
Yes, in the Baba literature only.
Yes. Great. So, with that, I will continue. Those who are spiritually awake have been aware for some time that the world is at present in the midst of a period such as always precedes avataric manifestation. Even unawakened men and women are becoming aware of it now. From their darkness, they are reaching out for light. In their sorrow, they are longing for comfort. From the midst of the strife into which they have found themselves plunged, they are praying for peace and deliverance. For the moment, they must be patient. The wave of destruction must rise still higher, must spread still further. But when from the depths of his heart man desires something more lasting than wealth and something more real than material power, the wave will recede. Then peace will come, joy will come, light will come. The breaking of my silence, the signal for my public manifestation, is not far off. I bring the greatest treasure it is possible for man to receive, a treasure that includes all treasures, that will endure forever, that increases when shared with others. Be ready to receive it. So now we go to the next reading.
Before that,
Yeah.
there are 2-3 things very intriguing in Baba's life and our understanding of that. His silence and his breaking of silence. His first book, which he has announced that he has already written and it will be published in some far off time. These things are very, very difficult for me to say, understand how to recognize this as something to elevate us or to think further and find out what he means here.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on all the three things that are enigmatic or intriguing about Baba. The silence, the breaking of it, and the book that he never released, right? So, yeah, I think that will remain the way it is, and it's left to each one of us to conjecture upon. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we are almost out of time. So maybe we do an early stop and start with the next chapter, which is 35 tomorrow, which I think our progress was slow today, but I think it was conscious. We did discuss quite a bit.
I just have a point to make.
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, see, we had read this chapter on travails of the new order, and so here also there's a reference to that. There will be some change, some transformation happening. So I think there's a there's a new order. What now?
So you had a question that we never heard. So before it becomes an enigma that continues to bother us, do you want to bring it up now that we have 2 minutes? Yesterday's question on Maya. Ashok? Yeah, you had a question that we never heard.
Yeah, no, it was basically about Nirvikalpa
Samadhi.
Nirvikalpa Samadhi. That was the question I had asked yesterday, because when we were discussing Maya and also, and so that is something again. Nirvikalpa Samadhi is something difficult to understand. It's enigmatic.
No, I think I will send you the para one-on-one on beams, the clarity, not beams, the God speaks para where he talks about all the four. I will send you that para one-on-one. So that's a good starting point.
Which we discussed today also, I think.
Yes, exactly.
Karthik, why don't you explain that analogy that I had described to you about the avatar and the computer game programmer designer, the virus?
Why don't you do it? You did it better.
Okay, since we have some time, if it's okay with you guys, this again Baba's insight to me, because I am always looking for practical examples how to understand all these spiritual concepts. So this came to me after a lot of contemplation, introspection, and reflection. CIR, okay, as usual. Imagine you are a computer game programmer designer. You are the most famous computer game programmer designer, and you design these amazing games. Now, who is the first person to play the game? Any answers?
Designer himself.
Perfect. Correct. First, the designer has to play the game, make it perfect, remove all the bugs, and then releases into the market. So people, what I call spiritual aspirants, they buy the game and they start playing it. First you have to know the rules of the game. So everybody plays this game in their own unique way. And after a couple of years, a virus gets in. Now, who is going to provide the antivirus software?
Maybe the Sadgurus.
Okay.
But the code is not there, right? The code is not with the Sadgurus. The
The-
code,
The
code for
the one who
game.
designed the
Code
game.
is with the
Exactly.
The
creator,
one who
creator of the game.
the one who
So
designed the
it
game.
has to
Yes.
come from- It has to
Okay.
come
He's
from
the best person.
designer, the creative.
Yes.
Right. So the designer, the creator is the only one who owns the code, and he can only come and change it. So he provides the antivirus software. So he descends to planet Earth, okay, and he provides the antivirus and creates a new version of the game, which I call the spiritual operating system. So we have Buddhism, Christianity, Islam. Now it's Baba, what you call, I don't know how to it's term this spiritual operating system, an awakening or whatever. So to me, it seems like it's a good analogy between what the avatar does. It's just like an antivirus, because again, in second law of thermodynamics, what is called entropy, every orderly system tends towards disorder, and the earth is an example of working against entropy, because here we are all trying to put things in order. If you don't clean up your room daily, then your room is in disorder. So that is a form of entropy. You have to make an effort. So this is an example of, that anytime the avatar comes, he tells people, but within 700 years, this will also become disordered. You will get many Baba schools of thought, probably. So that's what
Yeah.
my point.
Yes.
Good one. So enjoy the computer game that you live in for the rest of the day, and
Play the game.
come back for patches and antivirus tomorrow morning. Have a good day. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Karthik, you should send that the lyrics of "Play the Game" by Queen. Okay,
Okay,
that
I will
song.
do that. I will do that.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.